So number 19, what's the first step on completing the square? Divide everything by 2 to get that a value to become 1. So I'm going to divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. My new equation will be x squared plus 7/2 x minus 2 equals 0. Now, in addition to getting the a value to become 1, you also want to make space for your new c value. So how do I make space for my new c value? I want to get rid of that minus 2 by going plus 2, plus 2. So this is my new equation with space for my new c value. X squared plus 7/2 x blank spot equals 2 blank spot. Notice I have a blank spot on both sides. That's just to help me remember that what I add right here, once I find my new perfect c value, I need to add over here. So the question is, how do I find my perfect c value? As you can see, I wrote it right here, perfect c. How do I get the perfect c? It's simply going to be b divided by 2 squared. Now, a lot of people really get thrown with the b value 7/2, right? Think about it. If I say, what's half of 7/2? It's actually very easy to do, but people get freaked out. The first mistake that students make is that they write it like this: 7/2 divided by 2 squared. Yeah, that's ugly. That's crazy, right? But remember, dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by half. Okay, let me repeat that. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by half. If you get a calculator and you go 20 divided by 2, you get 10. If you get a calculator and say 20 times half, you also get 10. One more third time. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by half. So it's just a question of writing it like this: 7/2 times 1/2. That looks a lot nicer instead of 7/2 divided by 2. So this is how we're going to find our perfect c value. I hope everybody remembers this: 7/2 times 1/2 instead of 7/2 divided by 2. So how do you multiply? Just go top with the top, bottom with the bottom. You're going to get 7 over 4. And of course, you still need to square it. Now, 7 over 4 squared is simply 7/4 times 7/4. So that's going to be 49 over 16. So this is our perfect c value right here. That's our perfect c value. So what do I do with that perfect c value? I simply put it right here on this c spot that we made. So that's going to be plus 49 over 16. Let me zoom in. Plus 49 over 16. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. Plus 49 over 16. Now, we truly have a perfect square quadratic trinomial right here. Now, why do we want a perfect square quadratic trinomial? Because I will be able to rewrite it as a binomial squared equaling, and you might as well just put these together, 2 and 49 over 16. And of course, we are going to change this right here to an improper fraction by going 16 times 2 plus 49. That'll be our next step. But right now, let's worry about putting the x right here and what value belongs in here. What value belongs right here? If this were a 20, if this were positive 20, what would be right here? 10. If this were a negative 4, what would be right here? Negative 2. If this were a 1, what would be right here? 1/2. So you're always dividing by 2. It's simply b over 2, right? So once again, what is half of 7/2? Half of 7/2, we said over here that 7/2 divided by 2 is really 7/2 times half. What's half of 7/2? 7/4. So that's what belongs in here, 7/4. It's this simple. Half of this would be multiplying it by half. 1 on top, 2 on the bottom, that'd be a 7 over 4. There it is. So now you're able to solve this thing by square rooting and square rooting. Oh wait, I should have changed this to an improper fraction before square rooting. So let me rewrite this thing. 16 times 2 is 36, and then, no, it's 32, and then 32 plus 49, I believe that's 81. So I have 81 over 16. Now that's a lot nicer. That way when I square root, I could split the square root. Does that make sense? So you gotta, before doing the square root of the mixed fraction, you have to change it to improper, 16 times 2 plus 49. And then you could split the square roots, so you could do the square to the top and the square to the bottom. So my new equation will be x plus 7 over 4 equals, since we did take a square root, you have to put a plus or minus right in front of your answer. And the square to 81 is 9, and the square to 16 is 4. So we're almost done. All we need to do is subtract 7/4 and subtract 7/4. And of course, we're going to have to rewrite this again. So I will have x equals negative 7/4 plus or minus 9/4. Now some people are going to choose to stop right there, and I can't give you full credit. The only reason you would stop right there is if you could not add or subtract. Like if you had a square root, okay, stop right there. You have an imaginary, okay, stop right there. But both of these are fractions, so you could actually add and subtract them. So you have to do it. You have to go the addition up here, negative 7/4 plus 9/4, and then the subtraction right here, negative 7/4 minus 9/4. So you're actually going to get two answers. Negative 7 plus 9 is 2/4, and that reduces down to 1/2. That's your answer. And the other one is negative 16 over 4, which is an answer of negative 4. So you get your two answers right there for this one problem. And if you flip the paper over and you check your answer in the back and you see that it's correct, and you really feel good about yourself. I mean, look at that. It's like a work of art, huh? It's beautiful.